I feel so humbled to receive this award, particularly because of the tremendous accomplishments of the previous and current recipients, Dr. Karikó and Dr. Weissman. I want to explain why I'm here. When I finished my chemical engineering degree in 1974, I received many job offers to join oil companies, which is what most chemical engineers did then. But I had a dream of using my background to improve people's health. So I applied to many hospitals and medical schools, but none wrote me back. Then one day, someone suggested writing to Dr. Judah Folkman at Harvard. He said sometimes he hires unusual people. So I took what seemed to everyone like a huge risk and began doing research in a hospital. I was the only engineer there. The projects that I began working on were: 1, trying to discover the first substances that could stop cancer blood vessels from growing and thus stop tumor growth. And 2, developing tiny particles called microparticles or nanoparticles that could deliver these and other large molecular weight substances such as nucleic acids to the body. Many scientists told us this was impossible. I spent 2 years working on this project, and I found over 200 different ways to get this to not work. But finally, I discovered I could modify certain materials, form them into tiny particles, and use them to deliver these molecules. I then used these particles to create bioassays that enabled us to discover the first substances that stop cancer blood vessels from growing and help stop cancer. As an aside, it took 28 years from our earliest publication until the FDA approved the first blood vessel inhibitor. Today, such inhibitors like Avastin, Lucentis, and Eylea have been used to treat millions of patients with cancer or vascular eye diseases like macular degeneration and diabetic retinopathy. About 2 years after I started working on this project, I was asked to give a talk to a very distinguished scientific audience. I'd never given a big talk before. And by the end of the talk, I was actually pleased because I hadn't forgotten too much of what I wanted to say. So I thought when I was done with the talk, all these distinguished scientists, being nice people, would want to encourage me, this young guy. But when I was done speaking, a number of people got up and stated, "We don't believe anything you just said. You can't get these molecules to be delivered from these particles. It's just not possible." Also, shortly after that talk, I tried to receive funding to support my research and wrote a number of grants. My first 9 were rejected. When I was done with my postdoctoral work, I applied for faculty positions to many chemical engineering departments, but no one wrote me back or would hire me. So I ended up in a nutrition department. But in that department, the year after I got the position, the department chairman who hired me left, and a number of the faculty decided to give me advice. Their advice is I should start looking for another job. Another challenge I had was getting a patent. We filed a patent, and the patent office turned it down 5 straight times. Almost everyone told me I should give up, but I don't like to give up, and I started thinking about new ways to get this patent allowed, legally, of course. I scoured the literature, and I discovered that there had been a paper published by 5 famous scientists that said Folkman and Langer have reported some surprising results that clearly demonstrate the opposite of what scientists had said before. We showed this article to the patent examiner, who said, "I will allow this patent if Dr. Langer can get written affidavits from these 5 people saying they really wrote this." So I wrote to all 5, and they were kind enough to say they really wrote it, and we got this broad patent. That would ultimately lead to new ways of treating schizophrenia, alcoholism, opioid addiction, diabetes, cancer, and other diseases. Over the years, I and my colleagues and students have started some 40 companies to get our discoveries to patients. One of those companies was Moderna, started by myself and 3 others to develop messenger RNA therapeutics and vaccines. Again, these molecules had to be delivered in nanoparticles, using many of the principles ours and other labs had developed. Otherwise, the RNA would be destroyed. However, many people in the scientific community and the press criticized both me and the company and said this would never work. For example, when we started developing vaccines to treat COVID-19, the Boston Globe ran a front-page article entitled "This is not how you do science," with my picture underneath it. But Moderna and its terrific employees, some of whom are my former students, never gave up. Today, the Moderna vaccine and one made by Pfizer and BioNTech, also using nanoparticles and messenger RNA, are used all over the world. I want to add that my journey here, to a large extent, mirrors that of Drs. Karikó and Weissman. They made seminal discoveries involving making mRNA non-inflammatory, which is crucial for all medical therapies. However, their early work was very underappreciated for a long time, and Dr. Karikó had to leave her job at Penn. Both Dr. Karikó and Weissman deserve tremendous credit, not only for the vaccines, but also for being role models for the world and never giving up, regardless of what others said. Once again, it's an incredible honor for me to be here. Thank you very, very much.